beyond the name change being called Pulse Performance Network, it's really looking at the performance of the crop and not so much maximizing yield. I know those sounds the same thing, but it's really looking more at performance and how do we get to where we need to be. So that's where the benchmarking will come in.
That was Erin Matlock, the research agronomist for PGRO, talking about the Pulse Performance Network, which has been launched at cereals today. This replaces the P and Bean Yens, which had previously been run by ADAS. Erin joins us on the podcast today to talk about what's going to change and how you can get involved. You're listening to Inside the Pod from the Processors and Growers Research Organisation, and I'm your host for today, Ben Pike. So I'm joined here by Erin. We're out in the field today, actually in Northamptonshire. We've just done a little bit of filming to promote the launch of the Pulse Performance Network. Put you in front of the camera. Erin, how's that been for you?
Oh, fantastic.
You did a great job, well done. So if you want to have a look at some of the videos that we've put together, you can have a look on our YouTube Shorts channel and also on the PGRO's website, where Erin will very eloquently explain exactly what it is that the Pulse Performance Network is going to do. So I guess the big question, Erin, for those who perhaps aren't familiar with the yen and what we're trying to do with the PPN, what has changed for you? What's the fundamental difference?
So beyond the name change being called Pulse Performance Network, it's really looking at the performance of the crop and not so much maximizing yield. I know those sounds the same thing, but it's really looking more at performance and how do we get to where we need to be. So that's where the benchmarking will come in.
And what's driven the change then? Why do you feel like the PGRO wanted to take this on and take it in a different direction?
So we really have enjoyed what ADAS has done. We've learned a lot from the ends, but we just need to take it to the next level, get it more at the farm gate, and what can farmers do to really improve their crops. So let's put it more farm gate friendly, more farmer friendly, and have a little bit further away from the science side of things.
So talk us through what actually happens then. So the PPN, for those who aren't aware, the PPN has launched today. We are starting to sign up farmers from September-ish, Erin, is that
Yep,
right?
That's
from
our
September?
aim. Yep.
Tell us what happens then, once you've signed up, what happens from a farmer side of things?
So from the farmer side of things, once you have access to the PGRO Exchange portal, which you'll get access once you sign up, you're going to be able to put in all the data on the app, which is going to go from drilling all the way right through to harvest, do it in the field, in the flesh, so you don't have to think about that.
So the app, we've talked a little bit about the app this morning. That's perhaps one of the most eye-catching differences from what we've had with the yen. So I think it's fair to say feedback from farmers involved in the yen is that there's a lot of actions that you take on a crop over the course of the season. You then have to sort of remember that data, remember exactly what you did, and then punch it into the computer later on. Things sort of have changed now, aren't we? We're all much more tuned into apps and how they can work for you. So that's really perhaps one of the biggest, is that fair to say, one of the biggest points of difference now is that you can just capture stuff while you're out in the field, I guess?
Absolutely, while you're out in the field, and it's also going to encompass the autumn drilling date, which is also another big shift.
How are growers going to be able to download that and get hold of it?
They'll get access through that once they get signed up through PPN on our website. From there, we'll grant you access into the exchange, and you'll get the instructions on how to get that on your phone at that stage. And it's only going to be open to people that have paid entries.
Right. Okay. Just explain again for people who aren't familiar with how the yens worked and how the PPN's going to work. What is the difference between a paid entry and perhaps a sponsored entry?
To me, I consider them all paid. With PPN, it doesn't matter if you're paying for your own entry or if you do get a sponsored entry. The cost is going to be the same going forward. So I'm considering all of these being paid entries, whether it's from a sponsor or from the farmer itself.
So how does a farmer achieve a sponsored entry, and perhaps could just give listeners a bit of a background to how the sort of sponsored entry model works?
So we're really going to try and focus more on focus groups through our sponsors. So let's say a Waries or a Syngenta or perhaps MPZ want to have a focus on something that they want to key on. They can bring forward as many farmers they want, pay for the entries, then we'll just have that focus group and have more of a dissemination within that group at that stage.
And how do growers find out about what sponsored places are available, or do the sponsors put them forward?
We're hoping that the sponsors will drive that a little bit. As always, PGRO is going to be there to support them if growers are struggling to find a sponsor, but we're really hoping that the sponsors will drive it because it's going to be in their best interest.
So drilling a little bit more into the detail of what information a grower is going to be contributing to the PPN, can you perhaps give us some examples throughout the growing season of what information you're going to be asking them to put in?
So of course we're going to want your drilling date, as that is probably one of the key growth stages in our peas and beans, as well as flowering date. Anytime you're out there with a crop protection product or a fertility treatment, we want to know everything that's going on in that field, as well as our harvest date.
And then that information is going to flow back to, I was going to say to PGRO, but it's probably to you primarily, is it? What are you going to do with that information?
Well, it's not going to flow back to me personally. I'll just, so Leah, our data scientist, she'll go through the entire dashboard. We'll have the backtrack to that with the app and start doing some data analysis, focusing more on yield potential, what metrics are achieving that yield potential this year, and then also looking at it across a 5-year average. Because, year on year, the seasons are different, but how is this year also compared to previous years?
So are you going to be looking back to yen data as well then?
Yeah, we are. There's really no new questions we're asking based on the yen model. We've just trimmed it back quite a bit more.
Yeah, sort of simplification. Yeah. And then what can a grower expect at the end of the season from that data they've given you?
So at the end of the season, we're going to provide a report, and hopefully the front page is really all that you need to know. You can definitely delve more into the report, but that front page is going to look at your yield potential, very basic, look across the 5-year average, and more importantly, give some insight of what we feel you've done right. So it's like, okay, keep moving these practices forward, and potentially areas of improvement. You know what? Maybe next year you should throw in a little bit of sulfur. You haven't been doing that. That's just a pure example, but really to give where we can maybe drive some of this yield stability a little bit more forward.
And the feedback, is it quite specific then? And so you just meant like that. Well, I know that's just an example, but is it sort of that sort of granular detail? You're saying that this is one thing you can try, one that other growers have used and it's worked for them.
Yeah. So before we roll out the reports, the objective is for myself, potentially some other people at PGRO, to go through all the reports, look at all of the graphs, and really have it detailed per entrant. Now we do know there's going to be some overlaps, but really look at each one before we send it out, and that should still be sent out in decent time.
What would you say is the overall benefit for a grower who's never been involved in any kind of benchmarking exercise like this before? I can see, the front page of that report is going to be useful as a snapshot. Here's what you could be doing better. But I guess for the greater good of the industry, if that's not too sort of highfalutin, is that really what you're trying to drive at here? Better all-round growing
Yeah,
conditions?
better all around for the entire industry. We're just also wrapping up the NCS project, is trying to displace some soya, and one of the main things we need to do is to have more area in the UK to help with that. But to get that, we need growers to be engaged in that. What better way to do that than to continue to start benchmarking and gain better insight right at the farm gate? We can do so much in small plots and strip trials, but once we start looking at whole fields at each farm, we get a nice, better picture.
So it is whole fields that you're looking at. It's something we've been talking about a little bit this morning. There might be a view out there from some growers that you're only interested in large scale or intensive systems, but actually you want everybody, but you want a whole field. Is that right?
Yeah, I want the entire field. You can do whatever you want, spend quite a bit more on 1 or 2 hectares, but not really look at the full potentially 10-hectare field because the costs are there. So we need to have more consistent yields, but we also need to look at our ROI. The only best way to do that is to look at a whole field approach.
Great. And what does success look like for PGRO in sort of after maybe 3 or 4 years of doing this? I'm not putting words into your mouth here, but I'm guessing growing the numbers of people that are involved in it. Obviously, the data side we've talked about quite a lot, but is that the sort of thing that you're aiming for, your objective?
Yeah, the more people we can get involved, the better the picture, the better advice we can get at the farm gate throughout the entire season. So even after year 1 or 2, hopefully the numbers grow. Farmers are important on this, but it's also the wider industry. We need to have the entire industry involved in this to really get this thing going.
And we're launching today. We are recording this, peek behind the curtain, we are recording this before the launch of PPN at cereals. But when can growers start looking to actually sign up? Have you got a date in mind?
Hopefully the 1st of September, well in advance of our autumn drilling of our peas and beans. Mostly beans, sorry. There's some winter peas out there, give me a break.
So yeah, from 1st of September, all being well, sign up, and then you'll be well ahead of drilling then, I guess. So you're ready to go for the season.
Yeah, but more than welcome to come and ask questions anytime prior to launch. That is a non-issue. We're here to answer all those questions.
Yeah. So what's the best way of finding out more about the PPN going forward?
Go to the website, PGRO.org. You can find all of our contact information. We are going to have some PPN stuff on there as well as on our YouTube channels.
Super. Brilliant. Thanks for talking us through that, Erin. That's it's really good to see the PPN moving forward. And I know there's a huge amount of work involved in this. Anyone who's ever developed an app or a website will know just how complex some of these things can be. So that work's ongoing. So if you're interested, please do get involved. But as Erin says, there are plenty of people at the PGRO who can help you if you need to know more about what's in it for you. So thanks very much for your time today, Erin.
Thanks, Ben.
That's it for today's episode. If you've liked what you've heard, please do leave us a review or 5 stars on your chosen platform. We'll be back again soon with our next episode of Inside the Pod, but until then, thanks for listening.